Hey, welcome to another episode of Business Talk, a podcast presented by Business West and sponsored by Greenfield Cooperative Bank. I'm George O'Brien, filling in for our editor, Joe Bednar. We have a terrific show for you today. We have with us Jennifer Kaur. She is the Executive Director of CISA, Community Involved in Sustaining Agriculture. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on our show. We really appreciate it. We know how busy you are, especially at this time of year, with everything that you're doing. So we have a lot to talk about today. We want to talk about the farming community here in Western Massachusetts. We want to talk about CISA. We want to talk about some of its specific programs, especially the Senior Farm Share program. But before we get to all that, let's start by talking about you and how you came to CISA and to be its executive director.
Sure. Yeah. I have been with CISA for about a little over a year now. And have been familiar with CISA for many more. So my husband and I have a livestock farm in Franklin County. So we raise beef and pork and lamb and poultry, including ducks and chickens and turkeys, and have been running a CSA there and have leaned pretty heavily on CISA over the years.
For our listeners who might not know, what is a CSA?
Yeah, sure. A CSA is essentially where community members buy into the farm, and in our model, they essentially are buying 5 months of meat or 75 pounds of mixed species meat that they pick up at various freezers around the community.
Okay.
Yeah. There's many.
And your farm is?
It's called Hetty Bell Farm.
Hetty Bell Farm. I'm sure there's a story behind
it. There it is. It's the name of the matriarch of the family whose land we are farming. So there's a way of keeping that legacy alive. So we, like many farmers in our area, my husband and I are new and beginning farmers. And so we have leaned very heavily on CISA. We are local hero members, which is one of the programs that CISA offers. Farms have the option to become members and receive kind of promotional access, as well as technical assistance and tremendously valuable resources. So CISA has always been sort of this very special, very pragmatic organization, both in my heart and mind. And so when Phil Corman, who was a longtime executive director, announced his retirement, I thought, that would be an interesting opportunity. Having worked off farm throughout the history of our farm in sort of nonprofit ag work. So I made the transition in January of 2025, and I'm sort of finding my sea legs now. CISA, however, we've been working in this area for over 30 years.
Just going to ask.
Very much emerged out of the community. Community involved in sustaining agriculture came from a set of values and reflects sort of a commitment from various community stakeholders to protect this special agrarian place that we have. And we have several staff members still who have been here 20 years, 25 years, 16 years. So it's a lovely team to work with.
Now, are there CISAs in other parts of the state?
Yeah, it's a great question.
Country?
So
maybe not use that acronym. But.
No, yeah, it's a great question. So there are buy locals that work across the state of Massachusetts, and we all work together. We are a coalition of buy locals, so they're all regionally defined. What we do exactly differs a little bit, but the spirit of supporting local farms and promoting local food is universal. Now, CISA's Be a Local Hero, Buy Locally Grown, which is our local hero program, is the oldest buy local campaign in the country. And I think it's important to note that sort of CISA talking about the importance of consumer choices and spending food dollars here has, over 33 years, in many ways really shaped our food culture and sort of how we think about farms and the place that they hold in our community and in our economy.
As acronyms go, I always liked that one because each word is really important. You need the community. You need the community to get involved.
Yes, you do.
And of course, sustaining is that key word because these farms, a lot of them are not as sustainable as they once were, and they need help to remain sustainable. And with that,
that's right.
Kind of give me a quick state of the region's farming community, if you will.
Sure thing.
How healthy is it, and what does the future look like?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about who the farming community is, kind of what that picture looks like, and then we'll talk a little bit about the state. So CISA represents Franklin, Hampshire, and Hampden counties. So in that geography, there are the Connecticut River Valley kind of floodplain farms, as well as the Hilltown farms. The latest census data has about 1,942 farms in that 3-county area. Principal crops tend to be mixed vegetable, followed by feed corn and hay, as well as tobacco still in our area.
So,
Yeah. And I will point to
my first job was on the tobacco.
Oh, really? That's hard work. That's there's a little risk there. Yeah, and our landscape is still marked by all of those tobacco barns. That is a part of the valley for sure. Let's see, 94% of farms in our area are family farms, and between 25 and 30% of the farms are selling direct to consumer. So this means they're selling at farmers markets or CSAs, farm stands, or farm stores. And then many more than that are selling wholesale, locally and regionally. So this is how there are local products available in co-ops and larger chain grocers as well. Yeah, I think I will point to a recent legislative report that reminded us that 2/3 of Massachusetts farmers are earning something like 95 cents for every dollar invested in their business. So they're filling that gap with off-farm jobs or contract payments, agricultural commodity payments, or conservation payments. And that's not an ideal state. I think in that statistic, there is the third of agricultural farms that are very financially successful. It is possible, but it's not ideal to have farms, and farmers need to have multiple jobs. Of the 1,940 some odd farms in our area, that represents something like 162 million or more in value of products sold. It's a considerable part of our economy. The agriculture sector employs a lot of people. Many farms are creating jobs just by existing, right, in terms of employing farmers. Having an entire ecosystem of local farms that is thriving and healthy is to the benefit of all of us, both in terms of food production and other agricultural products, but also in terms of the landscape that we all value in different ways, but certainly appreciate the agrarian nature of our landscape. I'll also add that these farmers are stewarding a tremendous amount of farmland. So it's something like 154 acres in the 3-county area. And with that, they're stewarding, if you will, the commons. So things like water quality and soil health and entire forest ecosystems that really matter to all of us now and into the future. And so I think it puts farmers in a particular position of responsibility that is a common responsibility.
Talk about the land that these farmers are farming. We have a housing crisis where we all know about the housing crisis, and developers are looking for land for data centers and solar farms. There must be an incredible amount of pressure on farmers to keep this farmland as farmland.
Yeah, there is tremendous development pressure on farmland in the state of Massachusetts. That is one half of the story. And I think the other half of the story is that we do have some pretty efficient and functional farmland protection programs through the state and through many private land trusts. So we are fortunate to live in an area where farmland protection is a value. Of course, there are not enough resources to protect all of the farmland, and it does result in pretty significant vulnerability, particularly at a moment of transition or succession. So when a farmer is retiring or leaving farming, that is a moment in which that land is quite vulnerable to your point, solar development, housing development, or otherwise.
How much are we losing? Do you have any statistics?
Oh, gosh, I have had this, but I don't have it in my mind right now. Too much, because the reality is that once you lose 100 acres of farmland, it never becomes farmland again. You can't undevelop land. So it's an intense pressure. And at the same time, we are facing really high just costs of living in general and housing costs. And even farmers and farm workers are struggling with finding affordable housing. So that is a very real pinch point, and there are some policy decisions, I think, to be made around it.
You mentioned that your farm and many other farms in this area are first generation, if you will. How many farms are we seeing past that real challenge of getting from one generation to the next?
Yeah, that's a tricky one to answer. I guess I'll say the bulk of the largest scale farms in our area tend to be multi-generational farms that have been operating for 50, 60, 100 plus years. Yet the vast majority of farmers and farm enterprises tend to be new and beginning farmers. And new and beginning farmers, wisely, tend to start small. And so there's a threshold of scaling up in terms of becoming a viable farm operation. And in that juncture is actually where CISA provides a tremendous amount of support to the farming community in terms of business planning support, marketing support, branding support, looking at enterprises. Where are you making money? Where are you losing money? Thinking about farmland security, like securing your access. A lot of new and beginning farmers are leasing farmland. And so there's a little bit of instability baked into that. Yep. So I can't give you an exact number on the spot about how many are kind of crossing that threshold and then able to pass on to the next generation. But it is a point of tension. We have kids, we have teenage kids, and we talk about protecting this farm and being able to pass on this viable business to them. And we'll see. The reality is that they see us working really hard and they don't see us making a lot of money on the farm. It's a passion, pleasure, and we cover our costs and we're not losing our shirts, but you can make a lot more money doing a lot of other things. And I think that speaks to sort of our food system. And we probably need to course correct that. We need to think about food and how we support sort of a local food economy that works for farm workers and for farm owners and for consumers.
You mentioned challenges to this region's farming community. Certainly another one must be the land that they're farming. There is a housing crisis in this region. There is a need for land for other uses, maybe even data centers, who knows. Given what you just said about sustainability and what these farmers are making and what their costs are, is this land another serious challenge that they're facing?
Yeah, I think there is tremendous development pressure on farmland. We are lucky to live in a state that does have pretty exceptional farmland protection programs. That is a celebration, something we should all be proud of, that our tax-paying dollars do protect farmland. But I think farmers are particularly vulnerable for financial reasons. When you think about farmers retiring or approaching retirement, you think about succession and transition planning for that moment. It is a particularly vulnerable juncture for the farmland itself, in the sense that most of the farm kind of equity is what serves as retirement funds for retiring farmers most of the time. So responsibly and sort of balancing and weighing the trade-offs of how you can pass a business on to another grower, or whether you need to liquidate your assets, is a really tricky moment, which is an incredibly personal decision, but a decision that actually impacts all of us. Because to your point, there are a lot of farms in this area, and that those farms and the stewardship of that land shapes our agrarian sort of landscape that brings value in many, many ways. Production value, scenic value, brings tourism to the area. And so protecting that activity, that economic activity, is essential. And people need to live in homes. This is real. And farmers need to live in homes that are close to their farmland. So what we also see is a lack of contiguous parcels of farmland and many more producers that need to travel pretty considerable distances to get to different parcels that they have in production.
Well, you mentioned that a lot of the farmers in this region are not a lot, many are first generation.
Yeah.
What are you seeing with the generational farms? Are they being passed down? Is that younger generation willing to take on all these challenges and willing to step in? Or are you seeing a lot of farms faced with that really difficult proposition of getting to that next generation and keeping that farm a farm?
I think it matters. It depends on the family. In so many ways, these are just very individual and unique scenarios. We certainly see a tremendous interest in farming. So there is no shortage of people who are interested in creating farm businesses. I think there's kind of a bridge that businesses have to get across when they're scaling at a certain point. So that is an area where CISA actually provides a tremendous amount of support in our business technical assistance to think about business planning for scaling, enterprise evaluation, what crops or endeavors are you making money on, and which ones are you losing money on, and why. And there's choices that each producer is going to make around that, but having the information is really important. Thinking about marketing, thinking about land access, thinking about your ability to sustain labor. Agriculture is just a very kind of labor intensive endeavor, and it's hard work. And so we have fewer and fewer folks who are capable and skilled and able to do that work in our area. And that makes us all vulnerable.
Okay. You're listening to Business Talk, a podcast presented by Business West and sponsored by Greenfield Cooperative Bank. Our guest today is Jennifer Court. She is the Executive Director of CISA, community involved in sustaining agriculture. Now talk a little bit about CISA and how it operates and why it is so important for this region to have CISA.
Yeah. So CISA works to strengthen local farms and to engage the community in building a robust local food system. So we try to center a really thriving farm and food economy that includes and serves everyone, regardless of income. So as mentioned before, our area, kind of our service area, is Franklin, Hampshire, and Hampden counties. There are about, I think I mentioned 1,900 farms in this area.
That's a good number.
It is more than people think. I think people think of Massachusetts and they don't think of it as an agricultural state. But because we have so many small and medium scale farms, there are a lot of farms. And there are a lot of farms who are in transition, whether that's transitioning from generation to generation or growing in scale or changing their operations in certain ways. Those are all moments that CISA can provide really important support. So our work essentially falls into kind of three focus areas. One is that direct and practical technical assistance that's provided to farms and food businesses. And this, as mentioned, can be business planning, it can be marketing support, it can be climate adaptation or farm transition or succession planning. And this happens through workshops or facilitated peer learning or increasingly one-on-one sort of in-depth technical assistance where CISA might work with a farm for weeks or months as they transition through a certain phase. And then
I imagine that support is critical to people who maybe have a passion for farming, but not necessarily a background in business.
Yeah.
And this is a business.
And this is true for many entrepreneurs and many tradespeople where if you're working for yourself, you got to have all the skills. If you're building a business, you got to have all the skills. And some of them translate and some of them don't. And I think the way that support can manifest is quite creative depending on the needs. And again, depending on the pressures that are facing our area.
And these people are working not 24/7, but they're working from dusk till dawn on their farm.
Yeah.
And that doesn't leave a whole lot of time to work on their business.
And many times also have a second job. So
true.
yes, indeed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the second piece of our program in terms of the three areas is our steady and regular messaging and promotion work. So this is where we are elevating to the larger community sort of the broader agricultural issues and then how those issues impact local farms. And we're also providing really sort of practical information around why, how, and where to support local agriculture. So you might be familiar with CISA's Be a Local Hero, Buy Locally Grown. So this is our Local Hero program that I was mentioning my husband and I have been members in. Mm-hmm. So this is the longest standing Buy Local campaign in the country. And we're in 33 years this year, I think, of running the Local Hero program. And in many ways, I think this messaging around what it means to make a choice, a consumer choice to shape the kind of community and economy we want to have, has shaped our food culture in this area in lots of ways.
Okay.
And then the third area where we work is around the food system itself. So really building a better local food system. And this It includes our local food access programming, like our senior farm share program, as well as the SNAP and HIP outreach and support that we provide to farms and farmers markets. And we do a considerable amount of advocacy work to really advance good policy that is in support of agriculture and food access to that locally produced food for everyone.
Okay, talk a little bit more about the Senior Farm Share program, how it came about and how it works and how it's changing the lives of seniors in our area.
Sure. So the Senior Farm Share, essentially, well, let me back up and say, in thinking about sort of the local food movement and the buy local movement, that movement falls short when we do not include everyone in our community through very real mechanisms that sort of target the most vulnerable, the folks who don't have access to local food because the price point is too high, or because culturally it feels out of reach, or because logistically it's too far away. So the Senior Farm Share program really tries to address that head on for a particular population, seniors, low income, food insecure seniors. We partner with 16 farms in the area and 21 distribution sites. These tend to be senior centers or councils on aging to deliver a program that includes 10 weeks of fresh, nutrient-rich produce for low-income, food insecure seniors during the peak of the growing season here locally. So that tends to be like July through September into October.
Okay. And again, how many seniors are you working with?
So we are serving 800 seniors now.
This is across the region.
Across the 3 counties. The program began in 2004 and has grown steadily through community support. The program is supported through the state, through the executive office which is now called the Executive Office of Aging and Independence. It used to be Elder Affairs, but that has changed. We are also supported by family foundations. We're supported by a number of individual donors in our 3-county area, and increasingly through business sponsorship. Since 2004, we have distributed over 8,500 season-long shares to low-income food insecure seniors and paid $1.3 million directly to farmers for their produce for the program.
So it's a win-win-win.
It is a win-win-win. It feels like every dollar in this program is doing double duty. And we'd love to continue to grow the program and scale it. I think, we all saw this fall when there was a sudden pause in the federal supplemental nutrition assistance program, leaving about 1 million Massachusetts residents uncertain about where and how they were going to provide food for their families. We saw local farms step up in that moment. We saw increased direct donations to food banks. We saw increased access for gleaning programs to the fields across our landscape. We saw these free food tables pop up at roadside stands and reduced price CSA access, institutional donations to to schools. I think we often disconnect the importance of having a thriving sort of ecosystem of local farms and hunger and food security. And the reality is that these things too are very much linked together. And I think this program is a great model for how you kind of knit the two together and you address food security while supporting local farms.
I was going to ask if there was a model for this or if we created the model. It sounds like both.
Yeah, I think CISA built this model off of the popularity of the CSA experience in general in our area.
Okay. And where do we go from here? What's the future of
The future of the program is to eliminate the need for the program
There we go.
to meet the food security needs of everyone in our community. And in the meantime, we want to grow the program. We think it just makes sense. It's a very simple solution to increasing sort of access to nutritious and fresh food. I think the other piece of this is that what is often available to lower income households and those who rely on the emergency food system are shelf stable, oftentimes more highly processed foods with limited access to fresh, nutritious fruits and vegetables. The Food Bank of Western Mass is doing an amazing job to bring in a lot of local fruits and vegetables from local producers. So That is not entirely the case anymore, but the reality is that there is still a need for many, many, many folks to have ease of access to fresh produce. And the area that we're serving is both very rural, right? It's comprised of communities that are historic and small and have above average percentage of residents that are 65 or older, and the Springfield area, the largest city in Western New England. Very high food insecurity rates, I think the highest in the state of Massachusetts. So both of these, both urban and rural communities, are impacted by lack of transportation and a lot of distance between full service grocers and barriers for accessing full service grocers. And so there is still a shortage of an ease of access to fresh, nutritious food.
Okay.
We grow fresh, nutritious food right here and have a lot of farms doing it. Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have. We really want to thank you for coming in. Very informative, and good luck to you moving forward with everything that you do.
Thanks so much. Yeah,
Okay.
appreciate the time.
And thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to Business Talk, a podcast presented by Business West and sponsored by Greenfield Cooperative Bank, a strong supporter of the Senior Farm Share Program. And I'm George O'Brien, filling in for Joe Bednar. We will see you next time.
Thank you. Thanks so much.